Greetings. This is Dr. Stallworth speaking today about motivation in the workplace. It's absolutely key that we understand that our workplace is only as good or as bad as the people who comprise it. The greatest asset that we have in the workplace is human capital. If our people are not as sharp and as motivated and prepared as they can be, then we're not going to have the kind of results that we often are looking for. And it all begins and ends with an attitude. It's not so much the aptitude, which is important, but it's the attitude that the employee brings with him or her to the workplace. I often would say to people in big audiences back when I would talk about the difference between attitude and aptitude. The attitude is reflective of a person's commitment. You can't teach commitment. You can't teach it. It has to be something that comes from within in terms of being inspired and motivated. But when it comes to aptitude, competencies, you can teach a person how to do the job. But even if the person knows very well as an expert how to do the job, if they don't want to do the job, that's where the problem often lies. You have to motivate that person in the sense of getting them to know what motivates them. And as a manager, the leader, it's up to you to understand what motivates that person and then use that mechanism to motivate them to tap into that attitude. Attitude versus aptitude. I would rather hire a person who is committed versus a person who is competent. Because again, you can teach competence, but you cannot teach commitment. I remember years ago, there was a person who worked in the accounting department at the Corps of Engineers, where I was the Equal Employment Opportunity Officer. This was 23 years ago, back in 1999, 2000. So yes, 23 years ago. And the budget technician was very proficient in what it was that she could do, but she wouldn't come to work. And so it frustrated the budget officer. It frustrated her to no end because she needed someone there in that critical position who was motivated to do the job. So commitment, again, is far greater in terms of motivation than competence. So it's important that we analyze and understand what is motivation. It's something that is often misunderstood. We think that motivation is something that happens from the outside in terms of change, but it's really something that should happen from the inside out. External stimuli, things that happen, will cause us to respond and to react. That's reactionary. That's reactive change. But the greater of the type of change that could happen in terms of motivation and understanding motivation is when it's proactive, when it's preemptive. When you have someone who has been inspired to change from the inside out. Maybe, yes, indeed, there was an experience, something that happened that caused them to realize they needed to change. But the greater type of motivation and change that a person can exhibit and personify is having a desire from within to proactively, not reactively, change. So understanding that, first of all, because each person in the workplace as a component will make up and comprise the greater workforce. The human capital that we have in the workplace, again, is the most valuable resource we have, and we need to invest in our human capital every day. Yeah, the art of motivating people starts with learning how to influence the individual's behavior. And once this is understood, we can achieve results that sometimes we cannot see in advance. But when we take on the mantle and the responsibility of having a vision and understanding that that vision, that supervision, that's being a supervisor, has to do with a manager or leader understanding that I have a vision for how I see the mission, the goals, and the objectives coming together. And the only way that that mission, based on that vision from that supervisory authority that that supervisor has, or that supervision has, is that they understand that each person in the workplace should be motivated. That attitude should reflect an aptitude that says, yes, I can do the job and I want to do the job. Yes, it's an act of will. Motivation is an act of volition. We have to understand that. Some people, again, they can do the job, but they won't do the job. And that sometimes creates what we call a problematic person in the workplace, a difficult person to work with. And when you have a difficult person, sometimes we take on the wrong type of perspective about it. And we, instead of motivating that person, we demotivate them by shaming them and making them feel that they're unworthy. Well, if you hire them in the first place, they may be going through something debilitating to them in the workplace or even in their home space. And that workplace and that home space, those two things merge often when you're having family problems. And you have to find out what's going on with that person that's causing them to be demotivated. Don't give up on the person. You hire them. The thing is, and a lot of times we put a lot of money. Again, human capital in the workplace is the most valuable asset we have. So don't necessarily take a hard line with a person off the bat. Try to find out what's going on with the individual. Do your absolute best to delve into their mind and into what it is from an emotional standpoint, what's going on with them, so that that attitude that you're looking for, the attitude of not giving up, not giving in, and not giving out, will come forth. Because if you can impress upon a person that you really care about them as a leader, as a manager of that workplace, as a leader of the people, you can impress upon that person the adage, and they sometimes overstate it, notion, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. But yeah, caring about individuals in the workplace is so important to motivate them to stir up that will that we all have inside of us to do a good job. And so to release the full potential of employees, organizations are moving away from command and control. As I said earlier, this authoritative perspective that we sometimes take on as leaders, and we sometimes will use an iron fist approach, and we want to have complete command and complete control. Well, in the new generation of people, the younger generation of people who are coming into the workplace, they often don't respond to that type of command and control philosophy. They respond more to the democratic way of leading people. Democratic meaning that everyone has a say-so. Everyone has a voice. Everyone has input. Everyone matters. That's dimming. That's total quality management, total quality leadership from the top to the bottom. Everybody's opinion and perspectives matter. So that's nothing new. That's old school. That's 30 years ago when I came into the federal government. The first thing they did, they sent me to a class about TQM, total quality management. So yeah, command and control at one time had its day, but now we are into more of a democratic perspective, what is now termed as advise and consent, as a way of motivating people to change the attitude when employees recognize a good system of rewarding is more effective than threatening punitive action. Again, shaming people, threatening them with giving them a letter of discipline or suspending them or some type of action that's going to be punitive has in recent years has been determined as not being as effective as giving someone the benefit of the doubt and helping them to overcome what it is that they're going through. So, and always remember that you're motivating for the long term. If you're going through a rough spot with an individual in the workplace, recognize that it is a rough spot. But for the long term and for the most part, you have a good employee. The time, think about this, the time that's invested, the training, the institutional knowledge that an individual has, even though they're having some problems right now, which are reflective of the lack of focus that they have. You as a manager, as a leader, you have to home in on that and hone the good qualities and seek to take that person to the next level, to the next echelon of productivity. And the only way that they can do that, and the only way that you can do that, you have to know what motivates that person. What motivates that person. Motivation it used to be considered one of the unilateral directional things in the workplace. Unilateral meaning just one way. That it was always considered that the supervisor, the manager, the leader was going to motivate his or her subordinates. But now motivation is considered to be ubiquitous. It is circuitous, meaning it's like a circuit and it goes around and around. It's not just from the supervisor to the subordinates, but now it's subordinates motivating supervisors. Now it's supervisors motivating colleagues. It's ubiquitous, meaning that it's everywhere. And that's the way it should be, because that leads to a healthy workplace, healthy environment where everybody is thriving, everybody is achieving. That's what TEAM spells, the acronym TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. There's no I in team, but there is an I in the word win. If you want to win, if you want to W-I-N win, then you have to understand that yes, the person in the middle of that win is the I. It's all about the individual. There's that I again, individual, and his or her perspective about the attitude that they bring to the game. You see, you got certitude, which is certainty that what it is you're bringing to the game, being the strongest, not the weakest link in the chain, is motivated to do a great job. And then not only do they have the certitude, the certainty, but they have, again, the aptitude, the knowledge, the knowledge, skills, and ability, the pedagogical anchor that's needed, the fundamentals, the foundational knowledge that's needed to carry out the job. Yeah, aptitude is so important. But then what's more important than any and all of that is having the right attitude. One's attitude will always dictate one's altitude. It's the same way it is in aeronautics. The attitude of the plane, if it's nose up, that's the attitude. And you have an aptitude, which is the thrust of the power, which is knowledge, of the plane to go up. That attitude, that's nose up, nose down, as it relates to the horizontal horizon. Okay, nose up with the right attitude. Then if you have the right aptitude, which is thrust, then you're going to go up. So literally, and then nose down. Listen, nose down with it in aeronautics. It's the attitude of the nose of the plane is down, and that aptitude, the knowledge, the skills and ability that person has doesn't matter, and they're in a nose down position. They're going to go down because that attitude. This is the attitude. The attitude is off. It's wrong. It's not taking them up. If you have a nose up attitude and a desire with your aptitude, a desire to be motivated to go higher, then you will, because again, the attitude determines the altitude, how high you will go or how low you're going to fall. And so this has been Gregory. I want to encourage you to be a great motivator. Motivation is something that causes our emotions. When we become emotional, we go into motion. Semantically, that's where this word comes from. Emotions and taking action, not inaction, to be greater and to do bigger and better things in the workplace. And it all takes working together, and it all depends on how well we are communicating and motivating each other to do a great job. You have to understand that. Find out what motivates your employees, bottom line. Find out what motivates them individually. Not one person is going to be motivated by the same thing. You got two different people whom you're working with, and they're all going to be motivated by different things. Find out what motivates you. Find out what you truly, if you don't know, I'm 58, and I know what motivates me: to do the right thing, to eat right, to speak right, pray right, think right, write right. So yeah, all these things. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but what motivates me is striving for perfection. It's not about being right, but it's about getting it right. That's what motivates me to want to be better. The greatest task we have every day is to get better. And the biggest room in anybody's metaphorical house is the room for improvement. Be motivated. Be motivated. I close out with the title of my book. I have a book, and it's called According to the Power in You, Power. Remember this: the positive outlook wills extraordinary results for life. The positive outlook wills extraordinary results for life. Power. God bless you. Thank you for listening.